In the previous video, we learned about how you can use the dot notation in the simple case. For example, the person has a spouse. You can say Jim, that spouse, that spouse, that spouse, that spouse, right? The dot notation can keeps going on until you want to stop, right? And we're going to see just another example which is a little bit more advanced than what we have seen so far, which means we got several clauses where you can simply use a dot notation to navigate. And I'm going to show to you, and then gonna do some exercises together with you about the dot notation. It's a very important learning outcome when you learn about OOP for sure, how to use the dot notation. Okay, in real life, relationships among classes are sophisticated, meaning that you shouldn't have just one single class. You should have multiple classes, right? Just give you some example here. And the three classes we're going to consider will be students, course, and also faculty. So the diagram I'm showing to you over here is a design diagram which you will only be learning about in 2030, the subsequent course to 1022. So you don't have to worry too much about the diagram. I'll just highlight the parts you can pay attention to, but you will not be tested about the diagram for this course. You don't have to worry, but just for your information. You don't necessarily just have to focus on just Java code like this. You can sometimes show the architecture of your software by using some design diagram, which we'll speak maybe more about if you take the course with me for 2030 later. Okay, so we got student class, we got course, we got faculty over here, and let's now switch the iPad and then speak about it quickly. Okay, so we got these three classes over here. You can see. Here we got student class, we got a single value reference type attribute, stores the reference of a string, and also we got a multi-value reference type attribute CS, standing for courses, right? So that'll be an array of course. So every element in the array is going to store the address of some course objects, which refer to another class over here, right? It's a very important relationship to see. So you can see the course over here is really related to the course class over here. And similarly, you can see the faculty class over here also refers to another class that we define in the projects, let's say, right? Remember the two possible sources for reference type. Either it's from the Java library API class, or it's from classes you customize in your Java project. So we are talking about the latter case. And let's talk about another one. You can see here the course over here is also referring to basically, let me just draw a little bit better. It's referring to the same course class over here, right? You can see that's kind of the connection. All right. And single value over here, and also single value, and also single value, right? You can see this is also single value. So every course has a instructor, prof, and also maybe for member you also have a trainer attribute, right? Pretty much similar. And also we got multi-value attributes over here, and also multi-value attributes as we said before. Okay. In order to really complete the exercises, which I'm going to go over with you, it will be very crucial for you to really think about what could be the instantiated object structure at runtime. So this structure here, I already drew it before I showed to you the iPad. However, I would suggest if you really want to see exactly how to build up an object structure like this, you may just want to refer to your week number 7 and 8 Java tutorial videos, where I spoke about how you can build up the object structure using the JUnit test cases. You can refer to them so you'll see exactly similar structure like this, right? So for this one, I'm not going to waste your time. So I'll rely on you to really fill in the background knowledge from the Java tutorial videos. But for now, let me just go over with you very quickly about the three categories of objects we are talking about. All right. So number one, we have this particular, let's see this. It might be nice for me to be consistent with the color here. Let's just start with orange. Okay, so basically we got the course class over here in the middle. So at the runtime, let's say we got two course objects. So one here and also one here. I'm going to use the same object structure for all the exercises. So it's really good to get familiar with this first. And you can see the course actually, okay, let's talk about objects individually first, and then we'll talk about connections between them. So that'll be orange for the course, and also we got, let's say, the blue for students. So we also got student objects over here. I showed to you. You can see I just look for the title for the course, right? We just got one single student objects over here, right? So student objects, and we also got faculty objects over here. Let's say we have two faculty members, Jackie and Jonathan, let's say. So we got faculty objects over here, and also faculty objects over here. Also, we have some name over here. You can see F1, F2, and also EECS1022, EECS3311, and also student S over here, right? Let's now take a look at the object structure over here. Let's start with the course. You can see here, for this particular course over here, for EECS2030, that one has the instructor prof. Okay, you can see that one is really pointing to Jackie. So that means Jackie is currently teaching 2030. And similarly, you can see for 3311, there its prof attribute stores the address of this object for Jonathan, right? You can see that. So that's about the course. And also you can see the string over here, Advanced OOP and Software Design, just for the title for the course, right? And also get yourself familiar with the names of the attribute ID, CS, title, prof, and name, and also TE, etc. And there's some assumptions here we are making. Let me just mention them very quickly, okay? So the assumption is for all the attributes, they should have been declared as private. I don't really show them as private just because I don't have space to really show that on the slides or on the paper. However, you should really assume. For example, for ID, we actually got some public accessor called getID. Okay, and also for courses, I think I call that maybe get courses, get CS over here, and etc. Also, we got get title, and also get prof, and also we have get name, and also get TE, teaching. All right, let me write it down so it will be nice. Get title. For this particular example, I didn't really give you the source code, but I can definitely try to recreate the source code yourself. It would be some nice practice. And also, we also got something called get prof. And for the faculty, we also got get name, right? Just assume that. And also, we got get teaching, TE. All right. So these are the public accessors, which I don't show, but we assume they actually exist. All right. Let's look at the other two kinds of object very quickly, and then we'll start the exercise together. Let's say we got student object over here. You can see for the students, we actually got student got ID, of course, referring to the name, right? And also the courses array. Remember, the courses is actually of this type over here, is an array type. And then it's pointing to this particular array of size 2, right? You can see this student here is actually taking 2 courses. You can see at index 0 is really pointing to this particular course object for 2030, right? That means Jim is definitely taking the first course 2030, and also the second course at index 1, that one there is really pointing to EECS 3311 software design, right? You can see the object structure here. Finally, let's take a look at the faculty object, which will be similar. You can see we got name for F1, Jackie. Also, we got name for F2, that's Jonathan, right? You can see the teaching duty for Jackie is just another array. You can see the course array over here. And that one there is simply of size 1. You can see similarly for Jonathan, his teaching duty is also an array of size 1. But now you can see Jackie is actually teaching the first course 2030, right? And Jonathan is teaching just 3311. So that's kind of the object structure we have. We assume for the exercises. That will definitely help you actually program the template. All right. Hopefully you have no problem with this object structure over here. It would be very important for you to see how to build up this object structure by using the code that we showed to you in the week number 7 and 8 Java tutorial videos. I'll rely on you to review it. All right. So now let's go on to the exercises. We're just going to, okay, you can see all the attributes are private. So that's our assumption, right? And also the corresponding public accessor methods. That's something we assume, all right? So writing in the context of student, very quickly, in the context of students, whenever you say CS, is really like a this.cs, right? Remember, context object this is implicit. CS will denote the starting address of this particular array, of course. And then if you want to get to a particular course, you will need to do with some index, CSI. Should be a valid index for courses, right? For example, you can see here, for this student here, what will be the valid index for CS? It will be either 0 or 1, right? Because the size of the array is 2. Okay, so now let's do the exercises. I will remind you over here about the 3 classes we have, right? And we assume the attributes are private, and also we got a public accessors for them, right? We're going to go over one by one. I'm not going to use the slides. I'm going to use the iPad, so which will correspond to your slide as well. Let's do the exercise together. So we'll go with the following sequence. We'll go for the student class, and then the course class, and then go to faculty class, right? Let's go one by one. Okay, let's start with the student class, right? So we still got our 3 classes over here, and let's say currently we're trying to program this particular class. We are trying to introduce 1, 2, and 3. We are trying to introduce these 3 methods inside the context of the student class, right? That's the problem context. And then this is the object structure that we have walked you through previously. And now, since we are now focusing on the student class, so I can say, I will give you a little bit hints. You may want to think about, we are really talking about this particular student Jin. That's their name. Or more specifically, you should really think about, we're talking about this particular object, S, over here. All right? So that'll be some hints for you to think about the exercise. Let's now get to the first one. Okay? The first one goes like this. We go from like a easiest to this hardest. Not really hard, just relatively harder. Let's see the first one. How do we program this accessor method? How do we, let's say we are now in the context of the student class. How do we program this get ID method? How do we return the ID? Well, okay, so pause the video and tell me the answer. All right, assuming that you pause the video, to return the ID, you can see there is simply an attribute over here for the student class. Easy. So you will simply say return over here this dot ID. And if you think about this particular example, S will be this, right? So S dot ID will simply be S dot ID, right? That's how you get an ID. In which case, you will be referring to Jin, right? It's really important for you to see the following distinction. This part over here is about how you define the template. And this part over here is about what can be instantiated from the template at the runtime, right? It's really important. All right, let's see the second one. For the second one over here, so how do we program this method here? Get the title of the course. Basically, so integer I here, you can assume it's a valid index for the courses array. For example, it can be either 0 or 1 over here. And then we want to get a title for the course taken by these students. Either the course, either the first course, which will be index 0, or the second course, it will be index 1, or the third course, which will be index 2, right? How do we get a title for a particular course with a given index? So how do we do that? All right, pause the videos and think about it, right? It'll be very important for you to do such stuff when you also take the lab test later, the programming test. All right, assuming that you thought about it, so now we know that in the context of students, it will be this, right? We'll start with this first of all. So we'll start with return over here is a keyword. So this dot, let's try this. This will be the students over here dot, and then we want to go to the courses array, and that one will actually be referring to the starting address over here, right? We want to go to the courses array. I'll write it down. And then how do I get to, for example, some particular index course? Maybe I want to go to course number 2 at index 1, and then that one will refer me to this particular course. How do I get a title for that particular course? Well, just dot title, right? That's what you will do. So I'm going to say this dot, and then I want to say get courses, right? Get courses over here. Remember, we actually assume that particular, you can either say get courses over here, but since we are in the same class, you can definitely say in the same class, you can still refer to the private attribute directly. You can do that. Let's say CS. this will be an array, and then I want to go to index 1, for example, or in this case index I. And then once you go to that particular course, I want to get its title. So I'll say dot get title. All right, let's now try to use some example over here. So this can be s dot over here. CS is referring to the starting address of the array, and go to some index I. Let's say I is simply equal to 1. So let's say we go to index 1. So that one is actually that's really referring to this slot over here. And then dot, that means look up the address over here and go to that course objects, and then this is referring to this course object here, and call get title. How do you get the title for this object? Well, you will see the title here as software design, right? So that will be the second method. Okay, hopefully you have no problem with it. Okay, the third one here, slightly harder. Let's say the third one here we want to get the title for, okay, let's see, the name of the ith course's instructor. All right, basically in the context of a student, right, we want to get, for example, the first course's instructor's name, right? So for example, you can see this student here, go to their second course, for example, and that one there we know we have an instructor, and we want to get the instructor's name. The instructor's name is Jonathan, for example. But how do we get there, right? How do we get the title of the instructor, right? So here I say get title, but I really meant by the name over here. So maybe what I should do is I should really change this exercise over here. Before I do it, I should really change it to maybe get name. I want to get a name of that particular course's instructor. All right. All right. So now pause the video and think about it. What should we do? So we're going to say return. Okay. Let me write it down here, and then I'll trace it quickly. So this will be the current students, and then I want to go to the courses array, and then I want to go to that particular index for the course, and then for that course I want to go to the, so once I go to the course, right, I'm now in the context of the course, I want to go to its prof, right? I would say get prof. So once I get a prof, I will be in the context of faculty over here, and then I can easily get their name. The get name over here. Okay, it looks complicated, but it's not really. Okay, let's see how we can trace. So this can be student s dot, follow the arrow, cs is this particular starting address of the array, and then go to index I. Let's say index I is simply 1, right? So we go to index 1, which refer to this particular slot. Dot is going to look up the objects and follow the arrow over here. So we go to this particular objects over here, right? So far so good. And then we say get prof. Get prof is actually going to get this particular prof, right? And then we say dot. So dot over here is going to follow this arrow over here and go to this particular faculty over here. And once we go to this faculty object here, we're going to say get name. Once you get a name, you will see the name is Jonathan. All right, so that's how you understand this particular expression over here, right? Guys, it's really important for you to know how to write expression like this, right? You really got multiple dots over here, but as you follow along, let me just explain this particular one in detail, a little bit more detail. Let me write it down here. So you basically say in the context of student, right? So you say this dot cs at position I, and then dot get, you know what, let me just write this maybe separately. It will be better, so you can really understand. I only need to explain this once. So we would say under the context of students, right, we'd say this dot cs courses array at position I, so this will be a course, and then dot get prof, and then dot get name. Okay, let's now try to understand this expression from left to right. So we got, how many dots do we have? We got 1 dots, 2, 3. We got 3 dots in total. Let's see. So what about this context object over here? So this will be of type students. Okay, and then you're going to say student dot, and then courses array, right? So once you go to the so this will be referring to the courses array. So the type of this is simply going to be the course array, right? You can see the course CS over here is a courses array, right? And then we want to go to index I. So you want to index to a particular position of the array, and we know that for the array, every member should be of type course, right? So what we're going to do is, well, once you get to this part over here, yeah. So this part here is going to be of type course. Okay, once you get to the course, and then you say dot, right? So once you get to the course context over here, and now if you want to get prof, it's going to return back to you faculty, right? So now it's going to be faculty dot get prof over here. So this part over here is going to give you faculty. And let me just move this around a little bit, so I will be able to finish that. All right, faculty. And then you can see once you go to faculty, and then you say dot, you want to get a name. So once you get a faculty, the name will be simply a string, right? And then get name will just be a string. So the eventual expression over here, you can see this. The eventual expression will just be a string. And if you like, you can also put some this dot equals. And then it's going to be equals maybe Jonathan, right? Or Jackie, and etc. Right? One more thing to mention, right? You can think about, let me just give you one example over here. So in order for me to call this getName method, what is the context objects? This entire part will be the context objects. And in order for me to call the getProf method over here, what's the context objects? This will be the context objects. In order for me to call this particular array indexing, what's the context object? This is the context objects, right? So let me just highlight one of them. For example, if I talk about this particular method over here, and then I will ask about what the context object is. You know what? It's better to actually be consistent with the color. So I would say for this particular getProf over here, okay, you can think about this is the method, and this part over here specifically is the context objects, right? Okay, so this will be the orange one. This will be the context objects. Context object, let me write it down. Context objects. All right, that's simply just one example. And what's the context object for this? It will be this entire pink over here, this expression here. This will be the context object for getName. So it looks complicated, but it's really systematic and very straightforward meaning. Okay. All right, we're done with the first exercise over here, and we talk about how you can define methods in the context of the student class. Hopefully, you will be able to move faster for the other two classes for the exercises. Let's try. Okay, and then since you understand this already, so I don't need to repeat the details, right? Let's go back, go on to the second exercise. So now we want to define 3 methods now in the context of the course class. So the course could be Advanced OOP or Software Design. Basically, we are talking about these 2 objects, either EECS2030 or EECS3311, right? Let's now try. Okay, the first one, what's going to be the method? Let's say get a title. How do we get a title for the current course? This one is easy. We don't need to pause the video. So this one here, you just say return title. Return, but it's always nice to say this. It's just easy for tracing later. This dot get title. Right? Basically, we're trying to get this particular title. And we're assuming that such public accessor exists. All right, the second one. how do we do this method here? We want to get the name of the instructor. You can see this is the instructor for the course. We want to get, so it will navigate us to the faculty class. And once we get to the faculty class, we want to get the name, right? If you look at the diagram here, EECS1022, and then we say dot get prof. It's going to link us to this particular object over here. And then if we want to get its name, we say dot name. In that case, it will be Jackie, for example, right? So now what should we do? So this one, we're going to say return over here. And then we're going to say prof. That will be the instructor. The attribute, let me say this.prof. It's always nice to get to write this explicitly. So we're going to say this.prof over here. And then this.prof is going to navigate us to the to this class, right? So whenever you want to navigate using the attributes, the class you should navigate to correspond to the type you're declaring. So we go to faculty, and then how do we get a name? Well, just get and then prof dot. Once we get there, we can say dot get name. The name of instructor. All right, and then I think the method over here, I think I made some typo over here. So this get name, we don't need any extra parameter, right? It will simply just be get name. You want to get a name for the instructor, right? We don't need a parameter, right? It's typo. Okay, I'll make sure I fix the slide as well. You simply just want to get a name for the current course, right? You can simply follow the prof link and then get a name for the faculty objects that we have found. Okay, finally, what about the third exercise over here? So third exercise, we want to do get title over here. So now we want to get a title for, again, this shouldn't be get title, right? I think I just make some consistent typo in my notes over here. So rather than get title, we want to say get name. Over here. Let's now read the description over here. We are basically saying get an oh, you know what? It should be title. I beg your pardon. I was actually right. Okay. We want to get the title of the instructor's ith teaching course, right? For example, let's say we talk about the current course. We want to get to its instructor, for example, Jackie, and Jackie has a list of teaching duties, and we want to go to a particular index of that course. We want to know who that course is. So given this course, we want to know its instructor's ith teaching course. That's basically what we want to find out, right? This one might be worth thinking for you. Okay, sorry, there's no typo here, so that's right. So guys, what should that be? Pause the video and think about for this one. All right, assuming that you thought about it, so let's try. So you're going to say return context object this, which will be of type. You can definitely think about the detail and analysis that we did previously, right? I'm going to let you do it, okay? So, you know what? I think I might just be able to move this a little bit up over here. Okay. All right, so now this will be the course, and then we want to go to the instructor, so we can say get prof. And once we get to the faculty class, right, we can now get to their teaching duties. So we can say get teaching duty, get TE. And remember that one is an array, right? That one is going to return an array, and we want to go to a particular index for their teaching duty. So we can say square brackets I over here. And then once we get to that particular, so that one there is actually going to link back to another course, right? Just going to link back to the course. And then we want to see its title, right? Once it's title, you can say dot get title. Okay, let me just trace this very quickly, but for the kind of analysis I just did, I will encourage you to do it by yourself, right? Let's now trace this very quickly. This could be, let's just try another one. This can be EECS3311. Dot, follow the arrow, get prof, so get a prof, and then it's going to return this file, store address over here. Dot is going to follow the arrow and go to this particular professor, faculty, and then get teaching duties. And that one there, get TE, right, is going to return the starting address of this particular array. And then we want to go to index I. Let's say in this case, we're going to give you index 0. That one there is going to give you the store address in the array, and then dot. So we're going to follow through the address and go to the course itself. It just happened to be itself. That's okay. And then get a title for this particular course, right? So what's the title? Software design. So guys, really try to understand exactly what's going on here. I thought really the best way for you to really appreciate how you should define a template is to first of all visualize exactly what kind of object structure is going to be instantiated at the runtime, right? So you really want to make sure you understand this particular expression and see how to trace it using the using dot notation. So dot simply correspond to the arrow at the runtime structure, right? It's really important. Finally, let's look at final class, right? The faculty class, and we only got 2 exercises. Let's finish that, and then we are done for this week. And I'll just give you a little bit look ahead of what's going to happen in the coming week. Let's now take a look at this this one here. We are in the context of faculty, right? And now, how do we get a name of the faculty? Well, this one's this one here is not. I think this is a typo here, right? If we want to get a name of the instructor, right? Over here, we simply just want to get the name of the faculty, right? So now if you're already in the faculty class over here, how do we get a name? Well, just return a name. So this one's easy. So no input arguments, no input parameters needed. So we're gonna say return this.name or get name. We'll just say this.name will be okay, right? Just attributes. All right, so the only thing we gotta think about is this one over here, right? Title of the instructor or faculty's ith teaching course, right? So for example, so we are talking about the current objects, the context object being a faculty, right? So faculty can be, let's say, either F1 or F2, either Jackie or Jonathan. And this method is supposed to return. If I give you 0, of course, that means, for example, let's say given F1, Jackie, we want to return the very first course that Jackie is supposed to teach, and then give the title for that particular course. That's what we need, right? Actually, this was simpler. I would say the most complicated one we did was really this one here in the course class over here. So as long as you understand this one thoroughly, you should be alright. Okay, let's see this one here. This one here rather easy. We can say return. We can say this dot te, right? This te, which will be an array, and then we want to go to this particular index, and once you follow that, you will get a course, and then once you get to the course, you can get the title. All right, so that's about the solution to this exercise over here. Let's now just trace that very quickly, just for one more time, okay, just in case you're still not very comfortable. So this can be we are seeing this. This can be some faculty objects, right? So now we're in the context of faculty, so we can simply choose one of them. And then, so this dot, so we are referring to this faculty objects over here, teaching array, and that's referring to the starting address of this array over here, and go to some particular index. Let's say we go to index 0. For now, it's only the only valid address. So follow that address over there, and then we'll say dot. And then that will go to this particular object over here of type course. And then we can get a title for this course object, which will give us the title, Advanced OOP. You can do the similar exercise if the context object over here is actually F2. And then eventually you will get to this particular course object's title, which will be Software Design. All right? A very quick recap for this example here. So in real life, you would simply just get multiple classes over here. I'm showing you only 3, but realistically, you might just get hundreds of classes if you got a very big object-oriented projects, right? So you really have to know how to write expression like this. It should be quite very natural to you, right? Having multiple dots. And the best way to really visualize it is the best way to really understand it is to understand, number one, in the templates versus instantiate at a runtime. And then to really analyze this particular, for example, expression over here, you can look at this detail breakdown I just did, right? Okay, that's really something you're supposed to grasp when you learn about OOP. All right, so that's about this example I would like to discuss. Let's go back to the slides. I would like to conclude this week quickly and just tell you quickly what's going to happen next week. Okay, if there's any title on this on the slides, I will make sure I actually fix them. Right, I'll make sure I do that. All right, let's now go back to go to the one more thing I'd like to talk about very quickly. Only 1 minute. Okay, when we talk about equality for OOP, right? So it's really important to know if both sides for the equal are simply just reference type, let's say P1 and P2, they are simply just addresses for the point objects, right? It will simply just give you false, right? That's something we have seen already in the tutorial videos. It will just be false. And this slide here just summarizes basically about an equal operator for the case of primitive types versus reference type. Let's take a look very quickly. So primitive variable stores a primitive value, which we spoke about in the very beginning of this week. And also, for example, it can be a 7.5 and also 7.5, right? And also reference variable stores the address of some objects, right? Rather than the objects itself. It actually stored only the address. And so if you got P1 stores the address of this new object over here, and P2 stores the address of this another object, right? They are separate use of the new keyword. Even though these 2 point objects have the same contents, namely their x and also y coordinates are the same, but their addresses are different, right? It's quite easy to visualize. Okay, so now binary operator, relational operator basically, right? For the equal may be applied to compare primitive variables. You know, for example, I might simply say D1 equals D2. That means I'm comparing the values for those primitive variables, right? And I might actually say P1 equals P2. So I'm not really comparing the contents over here. That's not what I'm comparing. So that's the main points from this slide. I'm only comparing if there's the same objects. They are not the same objects in the memory, so it should be false, right? Just comparing addresses, okay? It's a very quick reminder about what we have spoken about. And if you understood already aliasing and also object creation, then this should be no problem to you. All right, let me just tell you what's going to happen for next week. I still cannot really finish exactly the classes and objects lecture as I initially thought, but that's okay. I don't want to go over time too much. There's 2 more topics for the classes and objects lecture. Number 1 will be about variables, which would definitely take some time for me to discuss. So I'm going to push that over to next week, not this week. And the second topic will be about how to use helper methods. That one will be more like a hands-on mini tutorial about how you can define helper methods. I'll cover these 2 topics next week. And then after that, we'll go on to 2-dimensional arrays and then Java APIs. So that'll be the plan for the rest of the semester. All right. Thank you for your patience for this week, and then I'll see you next week.